Okay, here is geometry notes number 17. It's use parallel lines and transversals. Make sure you put your name, date, and class period. And then your essential question says, how are corresponding angles and alternate interior angles related for two parallel lines and transversal? And to answer that, you say corresponding angles and alternate interior angles related with four parallel lines and transversals will always be congruent. And then we have a postulate here. Postulate 15, corresponding angles postulate. And basically it says when you have two lines and a transversal, they always say the word cut, which means that the picture has two lines that are actually parallel to each other, so they usually have an extra arrow in there, and then they have this line going through it, this is also called cutting. So it cuts through the other two lines. This one is the transversal, and typically they will label that one a little T, represented by transversal. But this postulate basically says is that any pair of corresponding angles will be congruent to each other when you have parallel lines. Okay, on theorem number 7, it says alternate interior angles theorem. And this is relating all alternate interior angles when you have parallel lines cut by transversal. They are also going to be congruent. This is what you should have seen in your activity 3, part 2, your constructions. On theorem 8, alternate exterior angles will also be congruent when you have parallel lines. And then they have theorem 9. This is consecutive interior angles theorem, which, remember, this could be labeled same side interior. When you have those two guys being cut by a transversal, the consecutive interior angles are supplementary. That means they add to 180. They are not congruent unless it is perpendicular lines. That's the only time. Okay, so make sure you have your words copied into the blanks so I can go over the examples now. Okay, on example 1 it says identify congruent angles, and if I'm looking at my picture, this angle up here at the top is 56 degrees. So I want to name every angle that is congruent to it and state why. Also realize they didn't put it on here that this line, this top line, is going to be parallel to the bottom line. They should have had little triangles on there symbolizing that they are parallel for this to be true, that we're going to work. Okay, the first one is I'm going to say that angle 3 is going to be equal to 56, because this angle 56, which would basically be angle 1, because it's what's missing in my list, I'm going to say that angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent because these are what type of lines? What type of angles? Well, these are called vertical angle. Okay, we had a vertical angles theorem that said all vertical angles were congruent. So I know I have 1 and 3. 1 is also going to be congruent to angle 7. I know angle 7 is 56 degrees because angle 1 and angle 7 are on the outside, so they're exterior, and they're also alternating across the transversal, so that means these are alternate exterior angles. And that would be a theorem that we had just above here. Know that those angles are congruent. That's actually theorem 8 right here. Okay. Looking at it, I have another angle that is going to be congruent, and I'd have to say that that would be angle 5 right here. Would be congruent to the 56 degree angle because 1 and 5 are actually corresponding. They're both on the top left side. These are corresponding angles. Corresponding angles is always the postulate. So do not put a theorem with corresponding. It's always going to be the postulate. And is there any others? Nope, that's it. Okay. On example 2, it says we want to find the value of x. Well, if I look at my angles, I have this angle here and this angle here. And if I was to name the angles, I realize they're on the exterior and they're crossing over the line that cuts through the other lines. So I know that these are alternate exterior angles. And the theorem right up here, theorem 8, tells me that those angles are going to be congruent. And since I have expressions, that means they're actually going to be equal. So I'm going to do x minus 8 will equal 55. And this is a one-step problem. I'm going to move the 8 to the other side by doing the inverse operation, which means I'm going to add 8. And x will equal, I believe that is 63. Okay. On the next page, you have, or on the second page, you have, whoops, I just saw something I need to fix on y'all's notes. I don't think I have whiteout. Yes, I do. Okay. Right there. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 independent problems. And right here. So I want you to work them. You see that the measure of angle 1, measure of angle 2 is 65. Then they want us to find 3 other angles that are equal to it, and then explain why. And then using the same picture, you're going to say that angle 5 is 115. That wants you to find 3 other angles and state why they are congruent, like I did in my example. And then you have examples 3 and 4, where you're trying to find the value of x, and then make sure you state the postulate or theorem that you use to actually solve that problem. Make sure you answer your summary. Okay. I'm going to give you a password for this one so I can see who is actually listening to the video. Your password for this set of notes is "The Cowboys are awesome."